Working as an FBI special agent was my dream job. My whistleblowing was apolitical and in the spirit of upholding my oath. Nonetheless, the FBI cynically elected to close ranks and attack the messenger.
The FBI will crush you. This government will crush you and your family if you try to expose the truth about things that they are doing that are wrong. We are all examples of that.
Joining us now are Steve Friend and Garrett O'Boyle. Thanks for joining us, fellas.
FBI whistleblowers Steve Friend and Garrett O'Boyle both join us now. Gentlemen, so glad to have you on the program. Thank you for your testimony.
We need more folks like you, and I'm sure more people are going to be from your background are going to be giving you guys more intel as you're sharing that with the rest of us. We can kind of see that this is becoming normal for them to be held accountable, because I think especially an institution that we pay their salaries, they need to be held accountable.
I think a lot of people do share our beliefs and convictions. I think they just aren't at the point that Steve and I and others have gotten to. They're too afraid.
Thank you so much for being a guest here on PBD Podcast.
Thanks for having us.
How big is that bloody flag that Steve's got? It's the whole wall of his house. Lots of love, guys. Thanks very much for joining us.
Steve Friend, Garrett O'Boyle. Thank you for being with us this morning. More importantly, thank you for speaking out. We appreciate it.
You're in the information age, but facts are in short supply. Reject the noise, ask bold questions, and pursue the truth with FBI whistleblowers and founding suspendables Garrett O'Boyle and Steve Friend. This is the American Radicals Podcast.
It is the American Radicals Podcast on a Thursday, 10:30 on the Eastern Seaboard, streaming live on rumble.com/amradpod. As always, guys, reminder, make sure that you click, smash, select, whatever your preferred terminology is, the thumbs up. Give us a like on this and follow the channel, and also subscribe to the audio format on iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, which we drop after recording the show here live on Rumble every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday at 10:30 Eastern Time. Glad to have you along with us today. Today, we're talking about own goals, and it's really the launch off for this. And we're not going to really just hammer this, because I think it's been hammered all across the influencer and the conservative content creation space, is the fact that you had a backbenching senator who aspires to probably run for president, because the last backbenching senator who was going to run for president from Connecticut has a paramour, and that's not really a good look, decided to virtue signal and fly to El Salvador on behalf of a MS-13 gang member the same day that one of his constituents was saw some justice, because another Salvadoran was convicted of raping and murdering her. And that just seems like an own goal to me, and an own goal for the gayest, most communist sport, that is soccer. But I could think of nothing better to describe the communists in this country. So we're going to get to other examples of that, not because we're ever going to convince the communists not to make bad decisions on behalf of themselves and the country, but because we might be able to point out what they're doing and how absurd and ridiculous and borderline retarded it is, that we can convince the norm and the normies in the burbs that maybe they should come on over to our side. So we're going to talk about how Californians are voting to flush away more money for homelessness. And this is actually after they burned down a bunch of their houses and are finding themselves homeless. Judges are saying that there are two genders, and they're doing that to argue in favor of trannies. You have the media that wants Chinese honeypots to continue. And then we're actually going to dig into the Trump alleged assassination and really flesh that out and give you the real true content that is behind that. So we got a lot to get to today. I'm excited to get to it all. Before we do that, let's thank the underwriting sponsor. Today is the OG sponsor of the program. That's the True Earth Pharmacy. TrueEarth.co is where you go. TrueEarth.co. You do not need the M. TrueEarth.co. And our promo code is AMRAD25, and that'll get you 10% off of everything in the pharmacy and in the fertilizer section. So if you're planting a garden, check out what they got. The squid extract, the latest and greatest products there, seeing some amazing results. And also for personal care needs, you can check out the turmeric trio, the black turmeric, the mushroom supplements, CBDs, and even some supplements for your pets. All of it available 10% off at trueearth.co. Promo code is AMRAD25. It gets you 10% off. All right, all the build up aside, let's get down to brass tacks. Let's bring on my co-host, Garrett O'Boyle, fellow indefinitely suspended, forever FBI whistleblower. And in light of the recent actions going on, maybe the director of an agency coming up. That seems to be the trend that's going on, certainly in the IRS, right?
Yeah, I guess only in those places that appreciate what whistleblowers do, which would not be the FBI, apparently. Which you were talking about the True Earth, and you said squid extract, and I thought, oh, that's a good adjective for us. We're basically squid extract at this point.
Well, I mean, I don't want to bang on other personal gripes that we have, but I really did that to launch off on the first one I have for the own goals. And I saw this a couple days ago because it was tax day. And for those who were really appreciative to send a sizable percentage of their income to the United States government for them to fund, I don't know, transgender shows in Nicaragua, or looking at the mating habits of rodents when they're under the influence of MDMA, all of that. And I'm really excited to spend the money. But you know who is excited for us to spend the money and is decrying the fact that the IRS, now under the leadership of a suspended whistleblower — no, he actually wasn't suspended — Gary Shapley, they're going to be cutting back on about 20,000 people took the fork, and they're looking to cut back on manpower at 25%. And someone who's really upset with it is Abigail Spanberger, former congresswoman from Virginia and gubernatorial candidate. She's running this year in 2025 as a Democrat. And this is a post that she put out on her social media, on her X account. A little hard to read. I will say it for you. It says, "Happy Tax Day. Just a reminder that while Virginians are filing their taxes, the Trump administration is cutting IRS staff and making it harder for people across the Commonwealth to get the help they need." This is a own goal because that is given on tax day, the day that most people are the most resentful of the federal government, and particularly the IRS. So really, before I get your reactions, I think that there could be no other better demonstration, an analogy for the gubernatorial candidate, Abigail Spanberger, than this one.
Pierre, giveaway. LaFrance. Two center backs being good tonight for Haiti. Oh no, look out! What a mistake! Can you believe that happened? Oh my word!
That looks like something that should happen in a kindergartner's soccer game, not in whatever professional league.
International play between Canada and Haiti.
Even the Haitians, their national team, I would have expected better. But that is the epitome of government cell phones. This Spanberger lady, this in an alleged land of the free, this would sink your gubernatorial hopes and dreams. Because, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I would think that even most people in Virginia are realize they spend too much money to the government, or they give too much money to the government under threat of force. By the way, it's not like they say, "Hey, I really support the government, so I'm going to willingly give them a third of my salary every year." It's under the force of a gun. They will send armed agents to your house if you don't.
Well, and if you look at just the recent history in that specific state, look, we had the Richmond field office of the FBI put out the radical traditional Catholic memo about Americans, Virginians who had a preference for attending the Latin Mass might be primed to become anti-government extremists, racially motivated violent extremists. So they needed to infiltrate parishes. That happened in Richmond. That's the capital of that state. You also had the current governor there, Glenn Youngkin, who he won the election last time, and they could only serve one term. He won that on the backs of parents being really, really angry about what was being taught to their kids in a state that's trended blue for a long time. He kind of rode that wave, got on the surfboard and did it. And he was running against guys who were saying, well, parents don't have the right to know what's going on there. And she's going to lean in on tax day to the fact that it's a bad thing that we're cutting back on the IRS. And just a little bit of background, I did some cursory research on Abigail Spanberger because I'm not a fan of her. She's the one who always talks about how she was a CIA case agent, or whatever they call them over there. And that she describes herself as a CIA person and a federal agent because she wants you to make sure that you know she carried a gun And so that she speaks from a position of authority when she wants to take away your gun. But Spanberger earned a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Virginia, an MBA, joint program between this German school and Purdue. In the early 2000s, she taught English literature as a substitute teacher to the Islamic Saudi Academy. Maybe a little bit of I don't know, a conflict there. And 2006, joined the CIA as an operations officer. She gathered intelligence about nuclear proliferation and terrorism. 2014, she left the CIA to enter the private sector with their security clearance intact. She wants to run for governor. I would think that that sort of statement should spike her candidacy, but people have a pretty short-term memory. But Virginia is very suburban. A lot of government workers living outside of Washington, D.C. Hopefully that they'll remember this. Hopefully her opponent, which I think is going to be Winsome Sears, who's the lieutenant governor there, should just run that continually on loop in order to get that to convince Norma that's an utterly ridiculous statement. It's an own goal.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just bitter, Steve, but when you read that resume of hers, I was struck with the realization that the absolute worst of us are the ones who often seek the most power, like being governor of a state.
Just to, I mean, in general, to be a politician, like they always give you that fake line. All of them, I don't care. Republican, Democrat, Green Party, Constitution Party. It doesn't matter. They all say, I didn't want to run, but then the people needed it. I had to step forward, or I saw the tiki torches at some Unite the Right rally,
They
and
needed
therefore
me.
Jill got me out of bed and told me I had to run. It's always the leader who wants to step forward, or alleged leader, is saying, well, I was spurred to do this. It wasn't what I wanted. You're all ambitious cretins. I can't stand all of you. I'm pretty uniform in that regard. I hate them all. I mean, one of the elements of my security clearance revocation from the FBI was they deployed the agents to go and interview my coworkers, ask them compulsory questions about things that did not pertain to my job responsibilities or the reasons I was under an investigation. They asked them about my opinions on coronavirus and Donald Trump and January 6th. And then they asked them, one of them, because some of those people still like me and stay in touch. And they said, what does Steve think about Democrats? And my buddy goes, oh, Steve hates Democrats. And then they go, oh, really? Really? And they look down, they start jotting notes. And then he waits, he goes, yeah, and Steve doesn't like Republicans. And they looked up like somebody had just urinated in their Cheerios. And then my buddy goes, yeah, Steve doesn't like any of those politicians.
Of course not. Why would a true red-blooded American would not? And oh man, the security clearance stuff, it's so arbitrary. But Steve, because you hold opinions that are your own, you can no longer help the nation battle national security matters.
Well, Stacey Plaskett said I might have committed treason. All right, let's go over to California, because as goes California, goes the communist left. And this is an own goal, in my opinion, my humble opinion, but I'll leave it up to your feedback, Garrett, as well as the American radicals here. Reporting from Breitbart, shock for LA consumers as homeless tax, which they voted for, takes effect. So they voted for it, and they're really surprised that the taxes went up in LA. So consumers in Los Angeles County shocked as a new 0.25% sales tax to raise funds for services for the homeless went into effect. The sales tax, Garrett, the sales tax went up from 9.5% to 9.75%. It's almost a 10% sales tax in Los Angeles. Wow. Two cities in the county, Lancaster and Palmdale, are now paying a sales tax of 11.25%, the highest in the U.S. Now, again, L.A. was ravaged by the fires. There's lots of homeless people there. So maybe there was thinking, oh, well, I'll just vote my own self-interest here. Then there'll just be unlimited funds to pay for me because I'm homeless. It's just for the encampments, as you can tell from that picture there. And I think that the own goal element of it is even more compounded when there's an adjoining story that I was able to find. And this is breaking. Much anticipated audit of the Los Angeles homeless, or it's HSA, it's homeless something. The Homeless Services Authority. Okay. The report identified approximately $2.3 billion in funding related to homeless initiatives that they didn't know where it went to. $2 billion. So they voted to tax themselves more to send to things that they don't know where the money goes. Auditors were unable to verify the total amount spent on homelessness services at all. They don't have a final number. They're like, we don't know. Auditors noted that the homeless services and the city routinely approved invoices from service providers without verifying whether they billed service were actually provided. So they just said like, hey, we'll cut you a check for, and we're going to take it on good faith that you're actually going to do the thing we're paying you for, as opposed to just pocketing the money that we're not accounting for. And nearly half of the program participants exited back into homelessness. So it didn't do anything to solve the problem of homelessness. Just
Man.
taxing people to spend money to achieve nothing other than growing the government. Maybe some people in, Orange County at least could say, hey, I'm gonna get off my duff and maybe go to a town council meeting.
This is while you're going through that, because I've never heard of this Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, and I was like, that sounds an awful lot like a government agency, and it sure is. It was formed or first created in the early '90s, so LA is like you just said,
30
alluded to this,
years, they haven't solved a thing.
and but they've got this new government program, and I bet you that if we took a deeper look, their budget went up every single year for the last 30 plus years. And now the homeless problem is even more out of control than it's ever been. But hey, just give us more of your money
Well,
and we will
we
solve.
know the budget's going up because they raised taxes. So by default, more money is being allocated towards that. And there is no objectively good result that they can point to. They say, well, people just leave this. They stay for a little while, they enjoy the accoutrements, and then they go back down living on the street. And then we vote to raise taxes. And then we're surprised that our taxes got raised that we voted for.
Hmm.
And on top of that, we're surprised that this program continues to grow and exist because it's just a government program. So, I mean, it is, in effect, I think, an own goal. You're never going to convince the communists because they see ultimately what it's for. They're not bleeding hearts. They just see it as an opportunity to grow a bureaucracy, to give themselves a job, give their buddies jobs on the teat of the taxpayers in that area. But the people that have to pay that, especially now that we're going to see some prices increasing even more, and I mean, we're not going to delve into the tariffs very much. There's not a whole lot you and I or anybody in the audience can do about tariffs. It's basically at the discretion of the executive branch. But I will say this: I think that they're underestimating the impact it's going to have on people, or they're underselling in a society that is instant gratification, where you can put Grubhub on payments now. That you're going to have some economic pain in Los Angeles, particularly where prices are already high. When they go to consume those goods, that T-shirt that is, you could have gotten at a big box store for $16 is now $38 plus a 10% sales tax.
Yeah. At what point does a system like that just self implode? And when does Los Angeles, which I'm just thinking about this through my own experience, and I worked in a small city as a police officer, it was 75,000 people, and there was enough of a homeless problem where you're arresting homeless guys all the time, or chasing them out of the parking garage or whatever, downtown, or somebody calls in, they're peeing on a building, whatever. It's pretty standard fare in a place like Los Angeles, a giant city like that. It's already got to be hanging by a thread, just where the city's going to essentially be overrun by zombies. At what point do the people who are paying the 10% sales tax, who are getting up every morning and grinding and going to work and absorbing the already ridiculous cost of living that is in that area, at what point does it just self-destruct because there's nothing left to sustain it? Because California as a whole is already in massive debt, even more than the nation is if you look at it proportionally. When does that? I'm just kind of waiting for it now after a story like this and seeing those homeless encampments. At what point does it just become like a vagrant wasteland?
I mean, I'm waiting on the bailout request by them, right? And that's a state that's completely captured, and there's nothing anybody can do. It's very much like us with the tariffs that we could do from the executive branch. I believe there's more Republicans in the state of California than any other state in the union. just because of the volume of the state. That might be changing because people are voting with their feet, right? I mean, and as an ode to the chat here, American 702, they want to leave California where they're forced to put on 15 masks so they can raw dog the air in the rest of America. Let's move on to North Carolina, the university system in North Carolina, UNC Asheville. And this one, again, a cell phone, and we can tee it up. We can tee it up with no, another look at how bad it can possibly go.
LaFrance. Two center backs being good tonight for Haiti. Oh no, look out! What a mistake! Can you believe that happened?
That's just it's just good stuff. It's just good stuff. But
It gets better the more you watch it.
especially when you see it in this context. So this comes from the Blue Banner, and it's very appropriately named from the perspective that it comes from. And this is a student voice at UNC Asheville. So it's written by a pedantic jerk who goes to this school. UNC Asheville students host and attend a pride event in opposition to anti-abortion, aka pro-life protests on campus. So Turning Points USA held a pro-life event on campus, and the college students there were very, very offended. And they said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to celebrate gay pride, which is nonsensical at all. If anything, it's kind of it's pro-life in the effect of you're not going to murder babies because you're impossible of creating them, but you're never going to be able to create them. So I don't know where the logic was, but let's take it from what the event organizer said. So according to Junior Dowling, the independent organizer for this event, one of the main reasons a lot of LGBTQ plus rainbow kamikaze students attend this school is how openly queer and progressive a lot of the student body is. They said that Turning Point USA, the club responsible for the anti-abortion, aka pro-life protest, it's a protest, it's not just a celebration of life, should not be made to feel welcome on campus, as they are solely here to combat that. So they want to open and welcoming campus, except if you don't want to murder babies. Quote, that's weird and that's dumb, Dowling said. UNCA cannot just sit here and market towards people who don't like others for who they are, unless it's, of course, Mr. or Mrs. They, them Dowling, who doesn't like Turning Points or anybody.
The arguments are just riddled with logical error, but they cling to them, and I think part of it is the obsession with higher education, and people immediately then think, well, I'm in college, and so since I go to the prestigious UNC Asheville, I'm smarter than anybody else. And I've been being told my whole life that the rainbow kamikaze is all that matters. And if you disregard it or talk against it, you are the bigot, and we're allowed to hate you, even though we claim that we love and respect everyone, except when we don't, because we hate you, because you love life and you love God's divine design that there are men and there are women, and they get married and they cling to each other and become one, and then they start copulating and having babies. But if you believe in that, well, you need to be hated by us because, well, we are the wise Ashevilleans.
Very scientific terminology, copulating. I would have just said raw dogging, but anyway. All right, this one hurts though. This is a different one, and again, this is an own goal from our side that you can't ever do this. So, reports from the Iowa Capitol Dispatch aiming to limit damages. A Catholic hospital argues that a fetus isn't the same as a person. This is a Catholic hospital.
Good grief.
So, Catholic Health Initiatives Iowa is a faith-based healthcare provider, is arguing in a medical malpractice lawsuit that the loss of an unborn child does not equate to the death of a person. Now, the lawsuit stems from this woman whose name is Miranda Anderson, 34 weeks pregnant. She arrived at this hospital for evaluation due to elevated blood pressure, headaches, edema, citing concerns that she was experiencing preeclampsia, a condition that can lead to serious complications for the mother and the baby and may require early delivery. She was transferred to Mercy One's obstetrics emergency unit. She was discharged after 2 days of monitoring and testing. Further evaluations over the course of the next several days, again discharged to her home until During another evaluation, doctor was unable to detect a fetal heartbeat. So baby dies in utero. Next day, she underwent cesarean delivery, non-viable baby girl named Eloise. So the Andersons' lawsuit seeks damages for negligence, alleging that the hospital and the physicians failed to recommend early delivery. And the crux of it is in Iowa, there are court-ordered awards for non-economic losses. So basically, like punitive damages. It's for malpractice. It's $250,000. But if there's a loss of life, it's that cap is thrown away. You can sue for more money. So the lawyers for this Catholic hospital are saying, well, that was just a fetus. It wasn't an actual living person. Now, what is the price that you're willing to pay for your values? That's really what it stems down to. This is an own goal that's you can't even quantify.
No, this is massive. One awful, and myself. I find myself when I hear stories like this, wondering and lamenting, and maybe even pleading with God. Why does this happen? Why do you allow this type of wrong and evil to occur? And I know the root of it is sin and original sin, but I also was thinking of in the book of Psalms, where I think it's one from David. I don't know for sure, but he talks about how God knew him before he was in his mother's womb, how God knitted him together in his mother's womb. This is a person. This is a real live person that, for whatever reason, its destiny, its sovereign plan was always going to be this. And a lot of that is because of the wickedness. If there was no sin, this wouldn't even be an issue. This wouldn't be a topic, because everything would be viable. There would be no death. There would be no argument over this here. But especially because you pointed out its Catholic roots, how it's blasphemous at this point. You claim Christ, you claim God, you claim creation, and everything that's rooted in Christian tradition is what Catholics allegedly stand for. And then this Catholic institution says, well, not this time. It's a massive own goal.
It's so short-sighted. Even, I mean, you're trying to save a few shekels here on this lawsuit. You have insurance, right? That you have it, but they're going to fight this, and they're not thinking even a minuscule amount into the future when, I don't know, President Newsom, the governor, American Psycho, takes over the country and changes policies with a pen and a phone, just like they all do now,
Yeah.
and then tries to make this Catholic hospital perform abortions. And they're going to say, well, that's a violation of our sincerely held beliefs. It's like, oh, really? Really? Because he didn't hold those beliefs in 2025 when you argued that it's just a fetus. That's not a life. So it's just a clump of cells, right? They're going to be hoisted by their own petard. Own goal. It's just bad strategy. It's just bad planning. And I think it's just driven by greed at this point, because
Right.
they don't want to admit defeat, or just say that you did something wrong. I mean,
I don't know why that's so hard. Well, I do. It's pride. It's rooted in pride. But people so often fail to realize that they will actually gain leadership capital. They will gain people's trust. They will gain people's admiration if they simply admit when they did something wrong. And you said something that I think we really need to focus on here. You said, what's the price you're willing to pay for your beliefs? If you claim Christ, you need to be willing to give up your own life for that belief. And here, like you said too, you want to just save a couple shekels? Good luck when you are met at the pearly gates. Good luck explaining that one. And I know we are all sinful. We all fall short. That's why we need God's grace. That's why we needed Jesus Christ to come and be our atonement, our propitiation. But that doesn't give you the right to just wantonly disregard what you claim you believe in.
now we've talked about this other one, this next story a little bit. It's a free speech issue, so it's going to get you again fired up, Garrett. And it comes from New Hampshire, and the own
Hampshire.
goal element of it is pretty telling. So it all stems from the fact that there are some dads who are wearing pink wristbands with XX embroidered on them to support their daughters because their daughters are having to play against dudes who feel pretty. Um, I, Come on, dads, like do a little bit better than that. I would like to see you like actually say, "Get behind me, Satan," and prevent that young man from getting on the field. But whatever, to each their own. So there's an update to the story. Judge rules that the school can ban the XX protests over the males in girls sports. There was a pending while we talked about it, but now the judge says that yes, the school can in effect say, no, you are not allowed to wear wristbands. I think there's a Supreme Court case on that one. Maybe
Yeah.
Garrett, we'll get to that in a second. But just as background, if anybody is unfamiliar with this case, this is the Bow School District. Bow School District was acting within its authority to kick 2 soccer dads out of a girls' game for wearing pink XX wristbands as a silent protest against biological males. I mean, dudes who feel pretty playing on the girls' teams. The crux of the U.S. District Court Judge Stephen McAuliffe's ruling is that while Fellers, Foote, and the others acted within their First Amendment rights, venues like school athletic events are considered, quote, limited public forums, and school officials acted within their legal authority to restrict what the parents said and did. Now, what I want to do is read the own goal here, because the premise of this, Garrett, is that, in effect, gender is a spectrum. X, 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 Y, and trust the science, except here, right? I want to identify as an attack helicopter today, so you should just, fuel me up with diesel, okay? The actual judge's statements here, he is own goaling, hoisted by his own petard, because he acknowledges that there is just man and woman. I read that somewhere. Quote, the message generally ascribed to the XX symbol in a context such as that presented here can reasonably be understood as directly assaulting those who identify as transgender women.
Directly assaulting. Do you know what a
Quote,
direct assault is, Mr. Judge?
it's a
Because
spectrum. It's words are hurtful. Words are violence. It's again a spectrum. Quote, because gender identifies because gender identities are characteristics of personal identity that are unalterable or otherwise deeply rooted, the demeaning of which strikes a person at the core of his being. And because both school authorities reasonably interpreted the symbols used by the plaintiffs as conveying a demeaning and harassing message, they properly interceded to protect the students from injuries likely to be suffered. So the judge acknowledges that these are immutable characteristics, unalterable. And because that is true, it gives people the bad case of the feels if they're a dude who feels pretty.
Mhm. Dude, there's so much packed into this. I especially appreciate how the judge says that the school authorities properly interceded. We mentioned it the other day, it's Holy Week. So it's no should be no surprise that we're going to go a little hard with the faith aspect. The judge claims the school authorities properly interceded. No. No. We mentioned it the other day. Romans 13 says that government, which by the way, in our context in this nation, public school is government school. You are a government employee because I'm quite confident this was a government school that this originated in.
Yes.
So your job, again, Romans 13, is to promote good, is to stand for good, is to be a deacon, a servant for good, and to punish evil. So he recognizes the truth that the good is the innate fact that there are men and there are women, there are XX and there are XY. Recognizes the fact in his decision, twists it like a corrupt judge would and someone who doesn't really stand for truth, and says, oh, there was proper intercession here. No, wrong, because the government is not supposed to bear the sword in vain. Here you're making a decision in vain because it's counter to truth. And then if you want to get into the First Amendment aspect of it, I think we've touched on it before regarding t-shirts or things of that nature. Typically speaking, it's dress codes related to students and what can and can't be done. And by and large, the First Amendment is supposed to protect even what you wear. And yes, there's some caveats for certain dress at school. If it draws too much attention or whatever the case may be, or if for some reason it is actually hate filled or whatever. But here you're saying the people who have the fake belief that that men can be in women's sports or whatever trans issues and demonic freakishness you're involved in, you're saying their First Amendment is fine because they can state this fallacy and claim it as their own. But if you want to wear the XX wristband in support of your daughters and the truth, by the way, the truth that they are the women who are playing on the girls' soccer team or whatever, then your First Amendment doesn't matter. Good
It's
luck in your alleged land of the free, folks.
it's interesting because the judge here, who's a dyed-in-the-wool communist, is acknowledging that the dudes who feel pretty are ascribing to a fallacy, things that are not in effect true, and their feelings matter more than other people's feelings. But also, they're allowed to say that. I mean, you're allowed to say untrue things.
Mhm.
But I just think that it is the ultimate acknowledgement of these are immutable characteristics, unalterable. And because we all know that that's true, and the judge is basically saying that, like, come on, guys, let's be real here. We all know it's gonna hurt people's feelings.
Mhm.
So the state now needs to intercede on behalf of this class of people's feelings to deny what is in effect true, because yeah, we all know it's kind of true. So I mean,
LaFrance. Two center backs being good tonight for Haiti. Oh no, look out! What a mistake! Can you believe that happened?
I just especially love the whiff at the end. He's like, "Oh, I missed it. Oh, I got it. Oh, I whiffed it again."
I, that's a lot of norms and normas in the burbs. That's not that hard to explain, right? That, oh yeah, when you say it that way, even the people who believe in the austere folks that are wearing the black robes, whatever the judges say, those Republicans, it's like, well, it's the law of the land now because some judge who's a communist ruled it that way. We just all have to live with it. Well, I mean, here's a communist judge who just gave you the decision and said we all know it's true, and then ruled diametrically opposed to that. So I don't know. I'll put my faith in Amy Barrett to correct that, right?
Yeah.
uh, uh, this one is from overseas, reporting in the AP about the United States banning government personnel in China from romantic or sexual relations with Chinese citizens. No more fangs. The pearl clutching goes deep here from the American media. The Associated Press reports the U.S. government banned American government personnel in China, as well as family members and contractors with security clearances,
Mhm.
from any romantic or sexual relationships with Chinese citizens. Why would you bother even going if you can't do that? If I can't tap Fang Fang, then I don't want to go.
Yeah, no Fang copulation anymore.
Though some U.S. agencies already had strict rules on these relationships, a blanket non-fraternization policy, as it is known, has been unheard of publicly. Oh my gosh, my beating heart. This has not happened since the Cold War. It's not uncommon for American diplomats in other countries to date locals and even marry them. Really? That seems like something that would be easily exploited by our largest geopolitical rival on the planet. The only exception to the policy is U.S. personnel with pre-existing relations with Chinese citizens. They can apply for exemptions. If the exemption is denied, they must end the relationship or leave their position. So they'll be put for a decision on their principles here.
Yeah.
Are you really truly in love with Fang Fang, or are you a person worthy of holding a security clearance
I
who's
wonder.
devoted to the mission? The own goal here is, can you believe this? Why would they want to prevent the honeypots?
Yeah. How dare they? People are gonna love who they're gonna love, even if it's Fang Fang. I wonder how many people are the true believer who says, "That's it. I didn't get the exemption. I'm leaving government service." And then, because everybody in China can be used as a tool of the state, how many of the Fang Fangs are going to be like, "Well, I don't have access to what I wanted anymore, so this relationship is over." And then the Eric Swalwell type will be like, "Oh, I don't have a clearance, and I also don't have my Chinese lover. What am I going to do?" And I like how they throw in the Cold War there, because hello, we are in a Cold War. We're actually in more than one. We're in a Cold War here, or a cold Civil War, as we call it on the American Radicals podcast. And we're in a Cold War with China. And it everything is escalating. You can only battle so many fronts at once.
Love is love, Garrett.
Just let people love who they love.
I want to pivot over to this alleged assassination plot because I did some deep dives on it, read through the affidavit that was actually involved in this, and it got reported and then kind of, I don't know, fell away from the public attention. I think everybody's more concentrated on a Maryland senator going to El Salvador for reasons
Yeah,
unknown.
we're gonna free the illegal immigrants and make them illegal, make illegals illegal again. And
He's running for president, right? Like that's pretty obvious. But anyway, uh, this one is reported all over the place, but I got it from NBC News. Teen charged with killing parents also planned to assassinate Trump. The FBI says they foiled an assassination plot. Happy days are here again at the FBI. So I got the affidavit for the search warrant and read through it, Garrett,
look at
and
that.
that's kind of boring to look at. So I'll just look off screen and take it down here because I did deep dive here, and this was a search warrant to look through this kid's devices. So his name is Nikita Kasep. Local police conducted a welfare check on Nikita because he was missing from school for 2 weeks.
I got a little info on that for you, Steve, because
Send it.
for those of you who don't know, this happened in my stomping grounds. I used to be a police officer in a place called Waukesha, Wisconsin. This is public information, so I'm not like, oh no, maybe they're going to be mad. But so I'm like, I saw this story, I think on Sunday morning. It popped up a notification on my phone, and I read it. I was like, oh, what happened here? Well, I did a little digging, and it turns out, so in the city I worked in, there's 3 high schools. This kid went to one of them, but his residence is in the county, not the city. So the school resource officer, who I know, and I don't know the details of, did he realize that this kid hadn't been to school for 2 weeks, or did the guidance counselor, or but after 2 weeks, somebody told him, or he realized on his own, and then called the sheriff's office and said, yeah, this kid hasn't been to school for 2 weeks. So can somebody, can you guys send a squad over to his house and see if he's there? Because 2 weeks is kind of a while without any notification from anybody. And they send a squad, and they see mom dead in there. And then it took hours for them to, breach and clear. And eventually they found dad. And then, I guess you can take it from there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really disturbed by the fact that they're allegedly the state cares for you, right? I mean, and the kid doesn't show up for 2 weeks and then just falls through the cracks. And then on top of that, the parents, at least one of them I know, worked and didn't come to work or call out sick for 2 weeks, and everybody just kind of like was like, I guess Jimbo will come in whenever he comes in, right? All right, so yes, you're right. They located and found both parents were dead at the house. Now, our suspect here, Nikita, he was located by police in Waukene, Kansas, with his parents' car and a big chunk of money, electronics, gun, ammunition. Now, he was involved, as it comes out, with this Order of 9 Angels. Is it Angels or Angles? I've seen it both reported. I don't know if it's a spell check issue. I think it's Angels.
I think so too, but I also am not an expert in this category.
The Order of 9 Angels, and that's a neo-Nazi, racially motivated, violent extremist group. So now we have a federal nexus here, and they advocate for the use of violence and terrorism to overthrow governments and destroy modern civilization. That sounds like a pretty bad thing. So the FBI found a 3-page document entitled, quote, "Accelerate the Collapse." I don't think he authored it. I think he just has it, and it's probably proprietary information from the Order of 9 Angels. Okay, it appears to be a manifesto calling for the assassination of the president in order to foment a political revolution in the United States and, quote, save the white race from the Jewish-controlled politicians. So
Wow.
he's a neo-Nazi crazy person, or at least ascribes to this organization. Now, I got some more here, but I want to be clear. I didn't see any communications between anyone who was identified as an agent of the government, So, a confidential human source, an undercover employee, an online covert employee. So, right away, I'm not getting the heebie jeebies of this could be a potential entrapment scheme. And that's really what the clarity hits me, because what's clear is that Nikita killed his parents, and he killed his parents in order to get their car and their money because he was buying into whatever this organization, which let's be clear, they're probably heavily infiltrated by United States government
Mhm.
operatives. Okay. So he may have been in contact, but I don't see any direct contact. He kills his parents. He gets arrested for killing his parents. And then after the fact, because they do their due diligence and they look for more incriminating information, maybe he's texting somebody about, "Oh, I'm going to kill my parents." And then you have a confession there. They find out that he has this quote plot to kill the president. They didn't foil a plot to kill Donald Trump. Okay. Now, the FBI personnel saw an image with information on how to utilize an attack drone. That sounds a lot like Skylar Philippi, who was the retarded guy from Nashville who changed his mind after not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 agents of the FBI contacted him and convinced him that he didn't want to do a mass shooting, but instead bring down the electrical grid for the continental United States by flying a drone, 3D printed drone with 3 pounds of C4 that he didn't have access to into a power station for the price of $150.
And didn't they get him drunk before he agreed to do that too? Yeah.
Yes, yes, they did.
And that guy was charged and is sitting in a cell.
And also back to where is the community here? And I think this is also the fault of an overarching state where people legitimately hate their government now. And I don't necessarily hate that sentiment, but it shouldn't be as bad as it is. And it's the fault of the government. But Waukesha police interview a classmate who states that Nikita sent gore videos on Snapchat and told him he intended to kill his parents by shooting them, but did
Yikes.
not have access to a gun. And this kid didn't feel necessary to
Yeah.
come forward
Maybe I
and
should
say like,
kill some-
"Hey, I don't want to be a snitch," but I mean, he's saying he's plotting to murder people. That's not being a snitch. That's called being a citizen.
Yeah.
He told the classmate that he would befriend someone with a gun and steal it. That's pretty specific. He told the classmate he would contact him from Russia, his plan to kill Donald Trump, and that when this classmate saw 10 consecutive attacks in the news, that would be the clue it was him. So the classmate was going to sit there and be like, "Is that 8 or 9?
Yeah.
It might
I
not be
gotta
Nikita."
told me to wait till he gets to 10.
All right. And the last element where I got concerned, and this is outside of specific to this case, but you would know better than me, being more of a veteran of the Joint Terrorism Task Force, the national security side of the house within federal law enforcement. There is, to me, it was a foreign term, nihilistic violent extremist. NVE, that's just another term that was invented by the FBI. They're individuals who engage in criminal conduct within the US and abroad in furtherance of political, social, religious goals, so terrorists, right? But their beliefs derive from a hatred of society at large.
Hmm.
That seems like every angry teenage boy.
Mm-hmm. They were nihilists, dude. If you, for you Big Lebowski fans out there, say what you want about the tenets of National Socialism, but at least it's an ethos. Another Big Lebowski quote. But yeah, this nihilistic, violent extremism. I don't remember if I specifically ever heard of that or saw that when I was in the FBI, but some of you may recall when we testified, it was Matt Gaetz. He pulled up or asked us questions about this uh, domestic violent extremist symbols guide, and it had things like the Betsy Ross flag and whatever, the Gadsden flag, the Gonzalez flag. Mike Glover's company was on there for some reason too, and there's a variety of those type of work products, quote unquote, that the FBI calls them, and they have ones for Antifa, they have ones for neo Nazis, they have ones for all sorts of different groups, and racially motivated extremists. I'm pretty sure they have that on there, and I would imagine then they've got something akin to this nihilistic violent extremism one. A lot of this stuff is available in the vault. If you go to fbi.gov, you can find a place on there that they call the vault, and you can look for a lot of this information. I know that the one that we were asked about at our testimony is uploaded into there, so I imagine some of the other ones are too. But of course, the FBI is going to cling to something like this where it has quasi quote unquote terrorist ties, because they're the JTTF side of the house. They're always looking for work because, quite frankly, there's not a lot of it. But the FBI, that's where they get the majority of their funding, is through their efforts against quote unquote terrorism. So take like this group, satanic, worshiping, nihilistic, collapse society, especially because there's a lot of European ties to groups like that. Like, I saw reported somewhere that this O9A is tied to Atomwaffen division. And so I don't know if they were separate, if the FBI would look at it as a terrorist group. But since they look at Atomwaffen division and then there's some linkage and ties to this group, they essentially kind of lump it together. And like, take this case, this kid in Waukesha kills his parents. Then he starts a quote unquote plot to assassinate the president. Like you said, they didn't foil some plot against Donald Trump. He started thinking of these different machinations after, or like the fellow classmate of his. He's putting some effort and thought into what he wants to do, but he's a Satanist and he's got no means, but he is taking steps to plan, which would be enough if the FBI had the foreknowledge. It would be enough for them to have a case on the kid. But this to me, it sounds like he's just a satanic dude. Not just, I mean, that's a big deal and horrible. And he kills his parents. This is murder, regular old murder. And now the FBI is getting involved because of the group, and they can claim a terrorist stat, I guess, for it probably. And
After the fact, they'll connect them to an organization, and they might even say it was a disruption of
for
their
sure,
operations, which is a heavily sought after quota item that still exists today. And what is today, like day 87 of the Trump administration? All right. I got one more, and it's sort of a palate cleanse-esque story because of all the failures of people to like come forward and report and how it should operate. And Pennsylvania's had some bad stuff happening lately. You had the Butler assassination attempt there. You had the almost assassination attempt of or not almost, the assassination attempt, the arson attempt of the governor recently, where they tried to burn down his mansion. And that was a radical leftist, by the way, who was upset that Shapiro doesn't simp for the Palestinians enough. I guess he didn't get a Palestinian tattoo on his neck when he wanted to become vice president. But this one was from Headline USA about actual foiled school shooting and how it should operate. And I am distracted a little bit by how there's an article at the top that says Trump lost 20 pounds since 2020. Like,
no,
okay, all right. So this school shooting was averted. Police alleged that Braden Phillips, who was 20 years old, planned to commit a mass shooting at State College High School in central Pennsylvania on April 21st, which was the one day after the 26th anniversary of Columbine. And that was specific that he wanted to do that. Police alleged that this guy, Phillips, compiled a hit list that the shooting would have taken place at 8:40 a.m. at a high traffic time. So now he's planning to commit massive maximum carnage possible. And he had also already arranged to put bombs in the school bathrooms. Authorities were first alerted to the plot by staff members at Center County Youth Center, who told the police a resident had shared information about it. Police interviewed Phillips' friends and others who told them that Phillips had detailed how he planned to carry out the shooting and showed them a handgun. So these guys didn't come forward originally, but somebody did. And now, as a result of that, a bunch of high school kids didn't die.
Yeah, this is a good palate cleanse type of story, because just take the last one we talked about. Where's the community? Where's the people stepping up? 50 years ago, I don't think it ever would have gotten to 2 weeks where it's like, hey, where's this kid? He's not showing up. And now in this case, you got someone who's like, dude, I think this guy is actually legitimately plotting something. I need to speak up. And they do, and they stop it. I mean, hey, bravo. That's I was telling my daughters this the other day, because we had this special election here earlier this month. And one of them was like, hey, I don't want to go because it's boring to go stand in line. Because when we went and voted for the presidential election in November, we did. We stood in line for like 45 minutes, and I was like, the line's not going to be that big. Not as many people turn out to vote. Well, then sidebar, the numbers came in eventually, and it was around the same amount of people who allegedly went and voted in this special election, which I've got some questions about that. But so we go, and she's like, I don't want to go. And I'm like, no, you got to go. And I took it as an opportunity to explain your civic duty. You don't just get to be an American. You have to, what does Kyle say? He says, you have to do America. And that's absolutely right. Whether it's going to utilize, even if you have election integrity questions, going to utilize your civic responsibility, even to go and place your vote, or to be that good Samaritan when you see somebody on the side of the road, or to tell the school resource officer that this kid or your friend maybe is plotting to shoot up the school, or plotting to blow up the bathrooms, or whatever the case may be. It is a responsibility and a duty for you to actually interpose in a proper way.
I say that, Garrett. That's my invention. America's an action verb. You got to do America.
I'm sorry, Steve.
Kyle gets all the credit, and actually, we get all the credit for the bad things he says too. All right. Before we get Garrett's final thoughts, we had a Rumble rant come in. We want to acknowledge, as always, guys, your generosity. We really appreciate it. Supports us here. American 702 made my day. You two and the cool kids in the Rumble chat. They are real cool in the chat, guys. It's always really rewarding to log in and see you there every day that we come in, which is Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, 10:30 Eastern time here on Rumble. And Garrett, your final thoughts before the palate cleanse.
Yes, sir. Proverbs 14:34. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. I'm going to play this little clip, but before I do, just think about what we were just talking about, and the collapse and the decay in society, and doing your civic duty and fulfilling your civic responsibility. Righteousness exalts a nation. It's really key to having a strong, thriving nation.
Sin will always come in and entice and look like it's going to offer you something, but it comes with complete betrayal. It's like J.C. Ryle said, right? Sin will never come to you in its truest colors, saying, I'm your deadly enemy and I want to ruin you in hell forever. Sin comes to you like Judas with a kiss, or like Joab with an outstretched hand and flattering words. Sin deceives, it lies, and it's stupid. It's stupid, and stupidity doesn't work. It's a reproach, it's a disgrace. You have so many examples in history, in the last 2,000 years or so of Christian history, of so many examples of great transformation and blessing of particular nations, and how God used particular groups and nations to bless the world with the Christian worldview and the gospel itself. But in our nation, we used to be, in the world, a standard of Christian rules and statutes. People understood. We know what those people basically believe. We know what their commitments actually are. And now, if you think about our reputation in the world today, it's a very bad reputation. It's a poor reputation. There's a lot of people that hate us. And let's be honest, there's a lot of people in the world that hate this nation, not just instinctively because I hate your team, but they hate this nation for right reasons. And when I say hate this nation for right reasons, I mean in terms of the immorality pouring out of this country into theirs. The things that we feed the world in terms of the new sexual ethic, or how we should live, or how we should dress, or how we should act, or how we should behave. There are nations out there that aren't even fundamentally Christian in their commitments, and they look at us and they say that is an abomination, that is foul, that is disgraceful. And so, in many ways, we've become a reproach in our own nation to the world around us. How we live is a disgrace. In terms, we could go all day on this, and I don't want to belabor this too much, but our nation is a disgrace and a reproach to the world in how we engage the world with warfare. We are unjust without Christian commitments and without Christian standards in terms of how we actually do war. We have a military presence all over the world. We involve ourselves in conflicts that are not our own. We enslave our children and our grandchildren with debt. It is slavery. It is debt to our children to actually do wars that, according to a Christian worldview, we should not be involved in. Christian worldview has a commitment to warfare that is just war theory. When I'm going to send somebody out to die for something, there better be a good, godly, righteous, just reason for doing so.
He gets into a few more examples, but I think it's an appropriate time, especially with a lot of the subject matter that we talk about here, to have it ingrained in us that it is righteousness that will exalt our nation. And that's what we try to do here. We'll try to be as righteous as we can. We know we're fallible, but the whole group of us, and we're slowly growing. There's not too many AMRADs out there, but hopefully some of this stuff is enlightening, encouraging to you, and a reminder to not just be encouraged, but to go and have courage and to speak the truth and to speak boldly and to proclaim righteousness, and to do it in a way that is loving of neighbor and honest and truthful, and speaking against the rotten, wicked culture that is a reproach to us.
And we had another Rumble Rant come in from Peaches.
Oh,
62.
Peaches.
Our power comes from God. Our representatives are elected to be our servants. It's up to the people to teach them how we limited their authority. I don't think they even know.
Amen.
I agree with you on that one,
Yeah.
Peaches. And as always, we're grateful for your generosity. And today's palate cleanse, we made that goalkeeper look really bad today. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
Fly ball center field, well hit. Marsh going back out toward the wall, and he can't see it. Oh, he made the catch. He couldn't see it the entire time. He stuck his glove out, and it landed there. That is unbelievable. He went to the right neighborhood, and at the last moment reached out with his glove about 3 feet from his body, and he made the catch. That's remarkable. Look at this.
He doesn't know where the ball is right now, and the ball literally hits his glove.
Oh. Look at that face. He is stunned like everybody else.
That's awesome. He is even he flinched when it hit.
Not expecting it, but I did appreciate how he pointed upwards, taking the big man upstairs. Probably more thankful he didn't take it to the face than anything else. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us today. Back with you Saturday, 10:30 Eastern time here, rumble.com/amradpod. If you haven't already, give us a thumbs up, follow the program. Until then, guys, have a great day.
You've been listening to the Voice of the Suspendables on the American Radicals podcast. Follow us on rumble.com/amradpod.